Hello everybody, welcome to our first of many videos this year that are designed to provide you information that you can easily access and review as we approach tests. And as the year goes on and we get to some more complicated topics, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of fine-tune your understanding as we approach tests and quizzes and things like that. So the first unit is all about the overarching themes of the class. We're going to see almost all of these things over the next week or so, multiple times during the course of the year, so this really sets the foundation. And more importantly, as a whole, this unit looks into how geographers work and what they do in order to get us the information that we'll be looking at. So topic 1.1, which in your notes I would write that down. It'll help you organize it, and you'll see more about that, the curriculum map, later. So introduction to maps is exactly what it says it is. Every map can be very different from each other, but they all have a very distinct purpose. So this essential knowledge is really the big thing that I'm going to have all of you guys focus on throughout the year. Every unit gets broken down into these different standards that the College Board wants us to know. And so this will sort of be the basis of the videos that we have going forward. You'll see me oftentimes turn this into a question for understanding when we're done. All right. So this is asking us to look at the difference between reference and thematic maps. Don't worry, the little piece that I have highlighted, don't worry about that. It'll be explained at a later date. So, reference maps are defined in the purple there. They're designed for people to refer to general information about places. So, sometimes they might be very specific, but overall it's more of a view from, let's say, like 30,000 feet, like an airplane view. You're not going to get the whole story about something, but just an overview. The sense of place, okay, it's trying to help you understand where you are, right? So if you're looking at a map of Teaneck and you're not from Teaneck, then you have a better idea of what's surrounding you and where you may or may not want to go. The second point, understand absolute and relative location. So absolute location is the exact spot where you stand or where a building is or something like that. Relative location is something that you're near. We're going to work with those more in class, but that's just to explain that. So let's take a look at some examples. And keep in mind, these are, when you see a slide of notes like this, you should definitely be writing it down in your notebook. When I get to slides like the next one, there won't technically be notes on the screen, but you should listen to what I'm saying and write down some of the key points. So if I was you and I was writing stuff down, I would write down first political map. As you can see, it's titled in the top right corner. For this one, I'll explain it, and then I'll mention what I would have wrote down for this to kind of help guide you along. So the purpose of a political map is to show you countries and its borders. Okay, it shows clear borders between political entities. So in this case, we see two things. We see a border between countries right here, above Montana, if you can't see the cursor, between Canada and the United States, and of course to the south between Mexico and the United States. Then within it, I'll go right up from Mexico. Here's the border between Texas and New Mexico, and you can see how it's a dotted line to represent that those are both entities of the same country, but they are distinct from each other. A political map is designed to label territories. And the other thing that you'll notice with this is there's no repeated color. Like, yes, there's green used all the time, but green never touches another green. There's always a space. That's to help you better see the borders and give a little clarity. So like Texas is green, Oklahoma is pink, Kansas is orange, Colorado is yellow, New Mexico, once again, is orange, but you can see the colors separating the orange of New Mexico with the orange of Kansas. So at this point, if I was a student, my notes underneath the heading of political map would have said to show clear borders, label territories, and the same color does not touch. Okay, so that's the kind of thing you're looking for as we move forward and see the same type of slides. So the next one, same thing. All right, write down physical map, and then from here, pay attention to what I'm saying and pull from it what you think is most important. The purpose of a physical map is to show natural features. All right, so I think you can pretty clearly see we have rivers. Right, so here I'm going through Nebraska with this river. We have mountain ranges, okay, out here in Colorado and Wyoming. We have desert out here in Nevada. And then let's come back toward the east. You start to see a lot of greenery, which is representative of agricultural land. Perhaps as you get closer to like Pennsylvania, forests, different things like that. Lakes are very apparent. Here we are with Lake Michigan, bordering Illinois and Wisconsin. Now, this map shows us state borders as well. Physical maps don't have to do that. This one just happens to do that. The colors, as you clearly figured out, represent, and these will be uniform throughout physical maps. Green will represent forest or flatland. When you start seeing ridges, that's representing more mountainous terrain, and brown represents more arid regions, whether it's, you know, maybe a desert or just sort of a semi-arid, like somewhere between a grassland and leading up to a mountain. And the ridges, what that does is helps understand the changes in elevation. Another popular example of a road map, which you are probably more familiar with, if you hear a crazy banging sound, that is my dog, Kemba, asking to be let outside. He's very demanding. So anyway, the road map, which you are more accustomed to, of course, seeing on your phone now, so even though this is a picture, just you could pretend you're looking at your phone too. So this is probably a great example of a reference map, right? The purpose is for your reference, to help you understand where you are or where you're trying to get to, okay? So, for example, if you were to take out your phone and open up Google Maps right now, you would see the blue dot showing you your exact location, and as you pan out from there, for the sake of your reference, you see that, you know, you'll see your street name. Come out a little further, you'll see the streets next to you. Depending on where you live, you'll start to see particular landmarks, maybe a park, maybe the border for another town. Again, all for your reference to help show you where you are and perhaps where you want to go. So at this point, we're going to transition to take a look at the thematic maps, which is highlighted in purple, the definition. So we can think about the difference between these two styles this way. Reference maps highlight what is in a place, and these thematic maps highlight a feature of a place. So they're more specific, okay? You can see the purposes below. I'm not going to talk through those because I'm going to do that on the next couple slides. So our first example is a cartogram. This is totally used to point out data. And you'll see it in a few different forms. What this map is showing us, and you can see it still shows us country borders that resemble that of a political map. Like, let's look at the United States here. This is still clearly Florida. This is clearly Texas. You can see a little bit of the shape here, the panhandle on the west. But it gets distorted based on the data point rather than the land mass. So size in this case is represented by population. So China up here underneath where it says cartogram, and India in the blue, those are the two most populous countries in the world. Thus, they are shown here as the two largest land masses. The purpose of this is for a quick understanding, right? This is really valuable to help you see where the populations are. Okay, the countries with the largest land masses don't always have the biggest population, so your understanding might be misleading based on a political map. For example, look at Russia right here in yellow next to China. Russia by land mass is the largest country in the world, but look at how small it becomes when you do just by population. Very similar to Australia. Look at the bottom right next to this little ribbon here. Australia is a continent itself, yet look at how small on this map it becomes when we look at just for population. This one is a very popular one that you'll see a lot through our textbook. Okay, it's a really great way to show and compare data when you don't need to change the size of the land masses. It's a way. This is using color. So it shows the concentration and the spread of whatever data point you're looking at. In this case, we can see from the key, we are looking at the population per square mile. So we live up here in Bergen County, and it's very red. Okay, and if we go back to the key, that means we live in an area that generally has more than 5,000 people per square mile. Okay, and you can see that through like Passaic and Essex and Union County, all up here in the north. Now, what this map shows us is as we move west towards Sussex County, where it's more rural, there's more agriculture and more forests, and there's less population. Look at how the red fades out and turns into this yellowish color and then ultimately green. Okay, it's a really easy way for us to determine the differences in population in New Jersey, right? To understand that if you live up here in the Northeast in a suburb of New York City, you're going to be very crowded. The other spot of a high concentration of population is right here. Okay, that happens to be the suburbs of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is right across the river in Pennsylvania, and thus you have a lot of people that work in Philly who choose to live in New Jersey. All right. In the south, you can see where a lot of these big chunks of green are. These are the farmlands of New Jersey. We're called the Garden State for a reason. This map kind of helps prove it for the haters and the doubters. All right, next, and we got just a couple more here. A dot density map. This uses a collection of dots to help you see the differences in whatever particular data point we're looking at. So this map, as you see on the bottom, is looking at the Hispanic population of each state. Let's compare two things. Let's compare California, all the way on the west coast, with, I'm not even going to try to count the dots, let's just call it 50. Okay, and then look at Montana up here in the north. There's not one single dot in Montana. This is where a dot density map can be misleading because according to the key, one dot equals 100,000 people. Okay, so for California, that means we have, millions of people of Hispanic descent. For a place like Nevada, right next door, 1, 2, 3. That means we're having, well, and technically this is where Las Vegas is, so we'll count that one too. So that's 4. So there's about 400,000 people of Hispanic descent in Nevada. But do we really think Montana has 0 people of Hispanic descent living in it? It doesn't. So that's where this map is misleading. What it does help us understand is that Montana has a Hispanic population of less than 100,000 people. Okay, so if you see this type of map, that's just one difference you have to be aware of. Okay, it's just to help quickly see where the concentration of a phenomenon is. This one is kind of grown from a dot density map, and it works really well in a GIF format, and you can see that happening right here. This is changes to the population in Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware over time, and the larger the dot, the more people that are living there. And so when you have this in motion, right, see we've gone back to the beginning, 1900, now we're at 1920, 1930, you can see in the very particular places where population has grown, right? And if you really looked at this, you could find other places where population decreased or never really wavered and remained constant. So building on a dot density to a graduated symbol, it makes it very valuable because you can actually see these changes happening in almost real time. Okay, two more. So we have an isoline map, and there's three images here which are going to kind of help prove a point. They use lines to show the distance between places. Okay, this is also a very popular style on topographic maps. We're not really going to need to see those too much, but they also show like changes in elevation. So if the lines are closer together, the elevation changes more rapidly. So carry that principle over to here with these maps, where it's showing you how far you could travel from New York City in a day, or 2 days, or 2 weeks, or whatever, in all the way on the left, starting in 1800. So the closer the lines are together, right, the closer in time those different places are. So let's see here in New York. So in 1800, before we have rail travel and steamboat travel and things like that, you could really only get to southern New Jersey in 1 day. Okay, if you wanted to get to Delaware, it would take you 2 days. Today, and if you want to drive to Delaware from New York City, it'll take you 3 hours. Okay, and you can see as we spread out more toward Florida, right, it would take 2 weeks to get to the very top of Florida. All right, and as the time travel goes from days, right here, you can see how bunched the lines are. Then when it gets spread out by week, they spread the lines out to help you see those differences. And what's cool about this map is you can see as the transportation revolution occurred in the United States and rail lines and steamboats became more prevalent, look at how all these lines from New York City aren't as bunched anymore. Right now, if we're in New York, you can make it to Delaware in 1 day, and you can make it to the very north of Florida in 1 week. Okay, that's a significant change in just 30 years. And then by 1857, you can make it from New York through Delaware to southern Virginia in 1 day, and you could get to northern Florida in 3 days. And whereas it used to take you 2 weeks to get to northern Florida, in 1857 you can spend 2 weeks and get yourself all the way here to the Texas-Mexico border. All right, so definitely seeing this helps us understand the processes behind it and how that changed. And the last one, you guys already have familiarity with this because we did them in class, creating a mental map. Right? The purpose of this is not about accuracy. It's totally about relative location. You're not concerned with drawing street sizes the appropriate size. Some streets might be larger. Like, look at this person's drawing. This street is a lot wider than this one. That's probably not what it looks like in reality. The school building is tiny. Okay? This town's school is probably bigger. This bus is like literally the same size as the school building. Accuracy is not important. It's just meant to help people or show people's understanding of their surroundings. Okay, and it helps you understand like what's important either to you or the population that lives there. All right, that's all we got for our first video set. If you're watching this for the first time, I have assigned some kind of work to go along with it beyond just taking the notes, so make sure you review and check out what that is, and I'll see everybody in class.